Let me ask you about this debate you did with Chris Cuomo. And for those who didn't see it, a lot of people talked about it. It was on Patrick Bet-David's show, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, we have a clip. I don't think we need to see it. We can encourage people to go watch it because I want to hear what Dave's impression were. But the thing that I think was so interesting about the debate, and I watched most of it, not all of it, but I will watch the rest, is that you have, on the one hand, someone like yourself who built your own platform pretty much, without the help of corporate platforms. I mean, you talked about how early on you worked at like CNN and Fox, but that really isn't a big part of your success. You kind of built your success in this independent way. And then you have Chris Cuomo, who's kind of the classic establishment spawn that the establishment puked up. I mean, his whole career is because his daddy was the governor of New York, and then he became a reporter at ABC News, and then he had a whole show on CNN, and then he got fired because of an ethical conflict. And now he's trying to kind of rebrand himself as this independent, nonpartisan media figure. And the problem is that so embedded in him, because he was there for 30 years inside these institutions, is so many of the establishment assumptions that are completely unexamined. And he's also engaged in a little bit of fraud, trying to claim that he never said certain things that are hated in that part of the world he's trying to succeed in, when in fact the record shows, the video shows that he was saying exactly those things. That was my impression of it, just this kind of juxtaposition. What was yours from having engaged with him? Because, by the way, I think Chris Cuomo is a nice guy. Everyone says interpersonally. I don't have anything personal against him. I'm just saying he to me is kind of the living, breathing embodiment of establishment conventional wisdom.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I also think that, I also have nothing personal against him. And in fact, even meeting him and being in that situation, there was this weird feeling. The whole thing was totally surreal and bizarre because on one hand, it's like, I'm this, comedian podcaster. And one of the things that I really kind of built my audience off of course, there's been lots of things, and probably more than anything else is that I'm good friends with Joe Rogan, and he's had me on his show like 12 times. And so I've built an audience off the biggest guy, liking what I had to say. And then I've done a lot of other, shows and that, but certainly, as you pointed out, much more than the corporate media stuff that I was on early in my career. It's been from the big podcasts that I've kind of built my audience off of. But one of the things that I'm kind of known for is that, from in 2020 and in those years, I was like a big critic of the COVID restrictions. That's like an understatement, but I'm probably more than anything else known for being anti-war and for being opposed to the COVID regime. And so it was crazy that I get to sit here one-on-one in a debate for 3 hours with the guy who was the #1 show on CNN. Like, it's just so bizarre how I've risen a little bit and he's fallen so much that somehow we were at the same event and I get to do this, with him. At the same time as that, that's kind of surreal. There's a weird human feeling where I did kind of feel bad about it. It was such a it was such a slam dunk. I mean, this wasn't it wasn't like, look, I mean, I watched your debate at the Soho Forum the other day. And by the way, Gene Epstein's a good friend of mine. I was so glad that you went and did that. And I thought you were phenomenal and you totally destroyed, it was just great.
Thank you.
But this wasn't even this was there was no argument. There was no argument to be made. He's on ivermectin now. I mean, this is out of a cartoon. It was just handed to me. Here's the win. It wasn't even like a competition. They had the Patrick Bet-David show. They posted a poll of who you thought won the debate, and it was 30,000 people, or right around then, voted for it, and I took 96%. I was surprised 4% went to him. There was no. And so in this moment, and the crowd was totally on my side, and I did start kind of feeling bad. I'm humiliating this guy. I don't want to humiliate another grown man. I don't know. I'm a grown man with kids. He's a grown man with kids. I would never want to humiliate someone else. That's just a kind of icky thing to be a part of. But then the way he'd start debating would start pissing me off. And then they would start playing clips of like what CNN was saying at the time. And that would start pissing me off. And so then I just would get back into it. And the thing, what really stuck out to me about the whole thing was that he said this phrase. If you go watch the debate, he said several times during it, he said, "We were told." And then it would just be whatever. We were told that people were taking ivermectin and dying from it. We were told that the vaccine was, and there was something about that really stood out to me. Like, it was like, could you ever imagine, Glenn, like if someone were to say, hey, you said this thing on your show that was totally not true and hurt a lot of people, and you went, we were told. Like, what? What type of excuse is that? What do you mean you were told? That's the job. The job is for you to decide whether the people telling you this are corrupt liars or they're telling you the truth. And what you kind of realize on a human level is that, just like you said, this guy's dad was the governor. His brother became the governor. He went and did a show on CNN because that's what they told him to do. And then he said what they told him to say. And so I kind of don't hate the guy for that, but then you do hate the guy for the fact that you're like, but dude, you were demonizing all of us as you were like unquestionably pushing all of the talking points of the power centers that you're supposed to be skeptical of. And so like, I don't know, there was something just infuriating about it to me. I'm so still to this day, I'm so angry over all of the COVID stuff. Like, I'm just so angry. It's to me, it was just so appalling that like these government policies and these government corrupt bureaucrats in bed with like big pharmaceutical companies and stuff like that would just ruin the lives of millions of Americans on the basis of pseudoscience and never have to be held to account for it. But there was this moment in the debate where I think I said this at one point, where I was kind of like, look, I do, for whatever weird reason, and it's not a meritocracy. It's not because I deserve to be the one. There's lots of other people who deserve this more than me. But I got Cuomo one-on-one for 3 hours. And I don't think there's anyone else who was a real culprit in the COVID hysteria. Like, I don't think anyone's ever going to get to debate Fauci for 3 hours. I don't think anyone else is going to debate Andrew Cuomo for 3 hours. Somehow, I think this is the only one that's happened, and I just happened to find myself in that position. And I was kind of like, I felt an obligation to be like, oh, sorry, dude. It's almost like if you could imagine if like a group of people tried to like jump you and your friends and beat the crap out of you, and then they all ran and one of them tripped and fell, and you just caught that one, and you're like, sorry, but you're gonna take this beating now for all of your friends. Like, you're the only one who I got my hands on, but I think you deserve this.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what was so interesting about it, and why I hope people will go watch it. It's not like he ended up talking to you or going on Pat Patrick David's show because he's some sort of like noble figure who feels like he deserves to be held accountable. It's because he got kicked out of that club, and now he wants to be on his own in independent media. And in order to do that, he's forced to go on those places. And the problem for him is that he is a representative of all things rancid and corrupt and deceitful of independent media, of establishment media, because the only way you get to work there is if you say those things that everyone else is saying. And it's exactly what you were saying with that Don Lemon anecdote. The reason he can say something like, look, the reason I said these things is because we were told them, is because this really is how all of corporate journalism works. They go to these most powerful people inside Washington who they're so proud that they have a relationship with. They want to continue that relationship. They want to continue to be the people who are chosen to be the message carriers. And sometimes they even get little scoops that they're petrified of doing anything to offend them. And then at the same time, CNN has this very liberal audience who would not tolerate, and still does not tolerate, any questioning of Anthony Fauci. And so had Andrew Cuomo been, or Chris Cuomo been courageous enough to do any of that, as he's now trying to pretend he's doing now, he also would have alienated his own audience and lost his job. This is what I'm saying about how corrupt these media institutions are. And so yes, while I understand you feel a little bit bad because you beat up on him, even though he was just one of many thousands, if you're putting your head on the pillow at night and having trouble sleeping because you feel bad, just remember that he has spent the last 15 years making like $8 million a year reading a teleprompter full of DNC talking points and complete lies from the establishment, and that should help you sleep easier at night.
Yeah, no, I'll be okay, Glenn. I do appreciate
All
it.
right,
But that is, it is a weird feeling. I'm sure you've had that before because I've watched you in debates where you've just destroyed some of these clowns. And like, it's like, there is a little part of you, I'm sure, that's like, he's just a guy, but he's a part of this evil system and they deserve it.
Exactly. The thing that makes you angry is the ideology. And then you have this person there who's advocating the ideology, so you need to attack them as well. Well, Dave, I knew it was going to be a great conversation, and it did not disappoint. I hope people will follow your work the way that I do. I'm so glad to see you in so many places doing all these kinds of debates, because I really don't think there are a lot of people like you who are as capable of defending the perspectives you're defending. I super appreciate seeing you tonight and taking the time to talk to us.
No, it was an absolute pleasure, Glenn, and I hope me and you do a bunch more shows together in the future. And I really do. I don't just say this. I love your show. I watch it all the time, and I've benefited so much from your work for a long time. So it is very cool for me to get to do this.
All right, Dave. Thanks. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.